In 2001, Universal Studios made a video game based on their theme parks. It was one of the worst video games ever made. The early 2000s were full of terrible licensed games, usually because the budgets were tiny since these were seen as just a marketing tool, or because the development was rushed so the game could tie into the release of some big movie. It's like that classic Miyamoto quote, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever over the hedge with the PS2. Universal Studios decided to do something a little different though. Instead of a cheap rushed game to promote a movie, they made a cheap rushed game to promote a theme park. This is Universal Studios' Theme Parks Adventure. Developed by Naya Digital Works and published by Kemco, this was released exclusively for the GameCube in 2001. It was meant to promote the newly opened Universal Studios Japan, with minigames meant to emulate the opening day attractions. It is infamous for being the 11th worst GameCube game of all time, based on critic reviews. Or, the 502nd best if you're more of a the glass is 0.02% full kinda guy. The video game starts with choosing your character and meeting your host for the day, Woody Woodpecker, who has a terrible voice that sounds like some kind of bad AI synthesizer.
I'm Woody Woodpecker. I'll be your guide today. Today in the park, we're having a stamp collection contest.
Your main goal is to collect stamps by beating all the minigames based on the park's rides. While the game is specifically about Universal Studios Japan, they will look pretty familiar since Universal has similar attraction lineups for all their studio parks. On E.T. Adventure, you ride your bike to help E.T. escape the police, dodging obstacles and hitting speed boosts to avoid running out of time. It's a pretty forgiving game because you can crash a lot and still get a high score. I never did find out why I kept crashing, but overall the minigame was pretty painless, if a bit boring. Despite the Green Planet being the most distinct and iconic part of the ride, you never actually visit it during the game, and your bike can only fly during cutscenes, which is a common theme with these minigames based on the rides, not really basing much on the actual rides, generally just taking one or two ideals, often more from the movies themselves than the rides, and basing it on that, though at least E.T. was still a decent enough game. Jaws was another solid one, probably my favorite. You pick up exploding barrels, you watch the radar to see where the shark is, and then throw them when he gets close. Nothing groundbreaking or even really, good or fun, but it's fast-paced, it controls decently well, and it isn't dragged out, which is a big plus considering that half of these minigames are 10 to 15 minutes long with no checkpoints. Next up was the Wild 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 West Stunt Show, which was a simple shooting gallery where you need to get a higher score than your computer opponent. A solid setup for another fast-paced, short game. The problem is the controls. Targets have very small hitboxes, and your cursor moves in a way that makes precise aiming virtually impossible. The computer will get the bonus targets so quickly, you really have to just memorize the entire game to have any hope of winning. This game frustrated me so much. I had to stop playing and come back another day to finish recording. Back to the Future, the ride, the minigame, is a race against time to break Biff's DeLorean by crashing into him repeatedly before he escapes. This actually has great game feel, with the floatiness of the controls working well to make you feel like you're piloting a flying car. And there's different environments here based on the ride itself, making this the most accurate adaptation. The big problem here is that the game is unforgiving. I played this on the normal difficulty, not expert, and I needed a near perfect run to beat him. Although it did get easier once I realized that drifting was so broken that was faster to just crash into the wall than was to drift around curves, which makes me think that the good game feel was on accident, and the floaty controls weren't intended to make you feel like you were in a flying car, it was just bad design. But overall, this one probably still would have been fun even with these issues if it wasn't for how long every round was. And again, there's no checkpoints, so you have to start all the way over from the beginning every single time you lose, no matter how close you are. There's a reason it took me nearly 5 hours to beat this video game when there's only 5-6 minigames. Jurassic Park is essentially a simplified version of the classic arcade game, although now with the control issues from the Wild West shooting gallery mixed with the fact that both you and the targets are moving. This was easily the hardest minigame, and losing never once felt fair. I honestly don't know if I would have had the patience to actually beat it without save states, since every run is over 10 minutes long and you have to restart from the beginning every single time. The only thing more frustrating than the gameplay is the fact that you're on a Jeep. when the ride is a boat ride. I can't imagine a poorly animated riverboat being that much more work than a poorly animated Jeep. Plus, being on a boat would set it apart from the much better arcade game. And you can't say it's because water is hard to animate, because they already have a water animation for the Jaws minigame. Not that that's a good water animation. Look at this and remember that this released within a year of Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. It seems like this should have been the easiest minigame to make fun, especially since it was borrowing so heavily from an already successful game. But this was easily my least favorite. Backdraft would probably be the best game if it worked, since it, actually feels like a real game. With you going into a burning building to rescue everyone, putting out fires as you go, dodging explosions, and collecting power-ups. The problem is the fixed camera angles, making it almost impossible to control, especially since the controls would often be delayed in switching over to the new viewpoint. So I'd have to guess which way my character would go at any given moment when I did something simple like push the control stick to the right. Is it relative to what I see now, or relative to what I could see 2 minutes ago? Who knows? Not me, that's for certain. Which led to a lot of cheap deaths, which meant saw the whole 15-minute long thing over again every single time. The last attraction was OSWALD. An action-packed stunt show surely would lend itself to a fun minigame, right? Well, actually, this one doesn't even try. Instead of any game, you just get a roughly 9-second long CGI recreation of a scene from the stunt show, with the only gameplay being the ability to select which seat you view it from, but only from 5 options. Don't get too excited. And I think I have to change what I said earlier when I said that Jaws was my favorite, because this one didn't make me do anything and was over in 10 seconds, so I think it's my new favorite. There's also some movie trivia and little puzzles you could do with Woody Woodpecker's friends, but there's nothing really noteworthy there aside from how oddly obscure the trivia could be, and the fact that Oswald the Lucky Rabbit makes a cameo as part of the broader classic cartoons Universal owned at the time, which is just fascinating to me. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, here in a Universal video game. Wild! Also, once you beat everything, you can watch the fireworks show, which was admittedly a nice touch and a fun reward for completing the game, even if the game doesn't actually tell you about it. I only stumbled onto it by accident because I wanted to talk to Woody Woodpecker one more time. Looking at this list of minigames, which range in quality from absolutely awful to, at best, almost playable, it's easy to see why this game got so poorly reviewed. Although I feel like the criticisms focusing so heavily on the minigames missed the point a little bit. No one is buying the Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure for a backdraft simulator. They're buying it to have a virtual version of a theme park experience. The chance to walk around a digital recreation of Universal Studios. Like, that's such a cool idea. A common criticism was that you needed a lot of points to unlock new minigames, and you could only get points by doing tasks that require you to explore the park, like meeting characters, or going on a scavenger hunt for the lost Universal letters. But that complaint comes from the perspective of the minigames being the point, but they're clearly meant to just be a fun bonus. The point is exploring the park. So if you look at it from that perspective, is it really as bad as critics say it is? No, not at all. It's worse. It's so much worse. The game uses a fixed camera and pre-rendered backgrounds, a style that was used a lot for PlayStation 1 games like Final Fantasy VII to get around the limitations at the time, but was pretty inexcusable for the GameCube. Plus, the player characters were so cartoony and polygonal that they never fit into the attempted photorealistic but really blurry and weird world around them, making it impossible to ever feel like you were immersed in the park. The fixed camera coupled with the attempt at realistic environments led to being very common to have no idea where you are, where you're supposed to be going, or where any doors are. I spent a good amount of time walking into invisible walls hoping to find an exit, and as mentioned before, you need a lot of points to unlock minigames. How that actually worked is that you needed to buy hats for each ride. So the lines are crazy long so you can't get on any rides, but Woody Woodpecker will let you cut in line if you're wearing the right hat.
Sorry sir, there's too long of a line. Oh, my apologies, right this way, sir. Feel free to spit on the peasants in the standby line as you walk by.
Thank you. I will.
You need to buy these hats from Woody Woodpecker. Can't be the Woodies you see scattered throughout the park next to the attractions. You need to go all the way back to talk to the Woody at the entrance of the park to buy your hat, and then go all the way back to the Woody in front of the ride to show him your hat, and then you can play the terrible minigame, assuming you have enough points to buy the hat in the first place. While you do get points from finding characters or the letter scavenger hunt, those aren't the main way you'll get them. It's mostly through collecting garbage. That's the primary gameplay loop. Find garbage on the ground around, pick it up, toss it in the can, get money, repeat. It's how you spend the majority of your time. Keep in mind that you aren't playing as a team member or custodian. You're supposed to be a regular park guest, living out a fun-filled fantasy day in the theme park. You spend most of it picking up litter. Yo, this gameplay fire. In the comments below the Angry Video Game Nerd's review, someone claiming to have a connection to the developer placed the blame on the publisher, Kemco, accusing them of screwing over the development team who had big plans and wanted to make something special here, with ideas such as an arcade to earn points, more unlockables, fun gameplay, and graphics that aren't terrible being suggested. Sadly, none of that happened. While we don't know the full story and all we have to go on is a comment that could easily be a lie, something has to have gone wrong, because I can't imagine that this is what anyone intended the game to be. It seems as though there was an audience for a video game based on Universal's theme parks though, as even with the abysmal reviews, it's old enough to justify a PlayStation 2 version. Although this wasn't a simple port, with the new version coming out 2 years later and developed by Konami, taking the same basic concept but remaking it from the ground up to have full 3D backgrounds, better gameplay, and even some light story elements. I would love to talk more about it, but it was a Japanese exclusive, so all I can really do is show a few screenshots and add a link in the description to a playthrough someone did. It really is a shame that Universal Studios' Theme Parks Adventure turned out so poorly, because a game based on a theme parks has so much potential. If it was done right, it could be something really special. Disney has proven that it can work since they've made games with the same setup at least 3 separate times, just that I can think of off the top of my head. Universal Studios has grown so much over the years and have so many more fun environments that'd be great to explore and cool rides that would make great minigames. This might seem like a bit of a wildcard pick here, but I think that new ride that just opened over in Hollywood could be a really cool game. I don't know, just something about it feels right. My point is, the ideals here are good and could definitely work. It's just that the Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure was a horrible, horrible execution of the concept. I hope that someday we'll see Universal take another crack at it, but for now it's just a truly baffling footnote in gaming history. I make videos about theme parks and theme park related things. If you like theme parks and theme park related things, you should subscribe. It really does mean a lot. Small things like commenting and liking videos help small channels like mine immensely. So, do that, please, if you want. Yay.